What we're starting today is Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is our rational equation. So we're talking about fractional equations. Equations where we can have variables in the numerator and denominator. And most likely we'll have them in the denominator here. But what we're looking at first is indirect variation. So direct variation, y equals a times x, is the main form that this equation comes in. Now we could say x is equal to a times y. Either one of these does work. Now if we do get the variable a by itself, the two other ways that this equation can be written are these here. Yes. Yes.
When will we be able to do that, like, get the rest of the problems?
Can she, from the rest of them, finish up?
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, direct variation, y equals a times x, x equals a times y. Both of these work. Or we can get the constant term a by itself, so a equals y over x, or a equals x over y. And with it being direct, or really indirect, or inverse, that a term is just a constant number. It is a number. And it stays the same for any version of direct or inverse variation. So it's a constant amount. It doesn't change for any given set of problems. And when we talk about direct variation, direct, they're going in the same direction. As one increases, the other increases.
May I have your attention, please? I need the students of ninth grade who are signed up for the educational talent search to go to group 10 at this time. That's the ninth grade students who are signed up for the educational talent search. Go to group 10 at this time.
But that also goes the other way, because as one decreases, the other decreases. They're both need to either be going up or both going down. They go in the same direction. Inverse variation is kind of the opposite of direct. As one increases, the other decreases. Or as one decreases, the other increases. They're going in opposite directions. And the main version of inverse variation is y equals a over x, where again, a is a constant amount. I mean, we can have it in another form, because we can say x is equal to a over y. Either one of these does work. And the other way that we can have it is if we get the a value by itself. A is equal to x times y. Questions on this so far? We good with this here? All right. Now the first thing we're doing today is looking at equations and determining if they are direct, inverse, variation, or neither. And if we look at a, x times y equals 5. It would be inverse. Because if we look at our inverse, x times y equals a, well, a is 5, so this is inverse. Now we're going to skip B for now, and we're going to look at C. Y over 2 equals x. Mm-hmm. This indeed would be direct variation. Now there's two ways we can look at it. One, x and y are on opposite sides in the numerator. They're on top of a fraction. And the only way that we have that is with direct. Now there's another way that we can look at this, because y over 2 is the same as 1/2 times y is equal to x. So it is still direct. B, what do we think B is? Y equals x minus 4. Either.
Good job, Kirsten.
And the big giveaway with it being neither is the subtraction sign. Because with direct variation and inverse variation, we're mainly dealing with multiplication or division. We do not have addition or subtraction.
Okay.
So that's kind of a giveaway that it would be neither. Now let's look at number 1. 6x equals y. Would this be direct, inverse, or neither?
Inverse. No, not. Direct, because
Y equals ax. So this would indeed be direct. Our value of a would be 6. How about number 2?
that's inverse.
xy would be
No. Inverse.
number 3.
Neither?
Neither.
Yeah.
Because you got a plus sign.
Because of the plus, this tells us it is neither. N-E-I. T-H-E-R.
I swear, okay, I swear we're right. No. Nether.
A is inverse. XY is inverse. B, neither, because of the plus. Y over 10 equals x.
Dang it! I got it direct.
It is
It
direct.
is correct, because it's y over 10, y over 2 is the same thing.
So y over 10 equals x is the same as 1/10 times y equals x. Because when x and y are both in the numerators and on opposite sides, it's going to be direct. If x and y are both on the top of the fraction and they're on the same side, it's inverse. Questions on the first set so far? So really, the first set is comparing it back to our original set of statements and seeing which one it matches to. Now, for these here, these next sets, we want to determine if they're direct or inverse. Now, the equation, because we do have several that we're going to use, is the one that gets the variable by itself. So for direct, we can say a is equal to y over x. For inverse, we can say a equals x times y. Because if it is direct or inverse, if the first one is direct, y over x should give us the same amount for any x and y we choose from the set. Same thing is true for inverse. If it was an inverse, when we multiply the two, we should get the same amount every single time. So if we look at the first one here, we can go to direct first. A is equal to y over x. And what we're going to do is take each x and y, so negative 2 over 12, divide them and see what we get. Well, the first one, negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Our next one, negative 6 over 4 is negative 6 over 4 is negative 3/2 or negative 1.5. Are these the same? Are these the same values? No. So we can say that for this first one here, it is not direct. So we can try inverse next. All these values have to come out to be the same. So let's look at inverse here. A is equal to x times y. So we're going to multiply the two together. 2 times negative 12. 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. Then we can move on to the next one. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. Next one we have 6 times negative 4 is, well, negative 24. And the last one, 8 times negative 3. So this is an inverse variation because when we multiplied the x and y's together, we got the same constant term for all of them. And that's it. Question on A. Are we ready to look at B? So, do we want to try direct or inverse variation first? A is equal to y over x. So 2 over 1 is first. 2 over 1 is 2. Next one we have is 4 over 2, which is 4 divided by 2 is 2. So can we say this is direct? Well, let's do one more just to see. 8 over 3. Is that also 2?
It's like 3.
Because 6, 2, because it's 2. 2.6 repeating. We can go to the next one and say 16 divided by 4, which is 4. But we didn't have to do the last one, because as soon as we have one that's not the same, we're done with that one. Because again, it has to be the same for every single one. Question?
I was just confused on that page.
Because they're just different versions of the same equation. So the different ways we had them written, it's just taking y equals a times x, x equals a times y. We're just flipping the variable. Because y equals a times x, we can divide both sides by x. A is by itself. The other side we have, if I divide this by x, x is gone. And over here I have y over. It's just the same equation, just written in different ways. Now for this one here, inverse x times y. Because the first one would be 2 times 1 is 2. The next one, so this is because it is, this set of data points is actually representing an exponential function. You don't have to write this down. But the equation that the data that this represents is actually y equals 2 to the x. It's not actually part of the lesson, but I was just saying this is what the equation that represents these numbers is. Let's look at number 4. Do we want to try direct or inverse first?
Let's go inverse.
So if we did direct first, 20 over negative 4 is negative 5. 15 over negative 3 is 10 over negative 2. Negative 5. So this is direct. Because we got the same value of a for all 4. Now if we wanted to write the equation for direct, y is equal to a times x, it'd be y is equal to negative 5x. How about number 5?
Okay,
We can do inverse first. So we can do 1 times 60, which is 60. 2 times 30. 3 times 20. It is indeed 60.
It's 60.
What's 15 times 2?
30.
Multiply by 2 again?
60.
60. So this one would be inverse. Questions on these here? Do we need to see another example of one of these? So we're good with these two?
We'll have to do the homework. Like right
So we're told that the variables x and y vary inversely. If they're varying inversely, it's an inverse variation. So y equals a over x. And y is 4 when x is 3. Write an equation that relates x and y. So essentially for this here, we just need to find the value of a. Because once we find it, we have the equation. Then find y when x is 2. So we have two parts. Now they do tell us that y is 4 when x is 3. So we can plug it in. So it'd say 4 is equal to a over 3. So whatever the value of a is, when we divide it by 3, we get 4. So at this point here, we can multiply both sides by 3. Because here the 3 over 3 would. 3 times 4 is. So the equation, the inverse variation would be y equals 12 over x. Questions on how we found the equation relating x and y? You good? Now the second part is find y when x is 2. So we'd have 12 over negative 2. Well, 12 divided by negative 2 is?
6. Sorry.
So y equals negative 6 and y equals 12 over x are the two parts of the answer. And that's it. We ready for the next one? Variables x and y vary inversely, and y is 8 when x is 4. So we're saying 8 is equal to a over 4. So the first thing we need to do is find the value of a. And we do that by multiplying both sides by 4. Because here the 4 and 4 will cancel. (32). So our equation is y is equal to 32 over x. Now we need to find the value of y when x is negative 16. So we have 32 over negative 16 is negative 2.
16 and 16 is 32, so 16 plus 16. It's all math, guys.
Questions on any of this here? I feel good with this. Do I need to see another example of one of these? Okay. Which one of these do we want to look at? So number 8. X and y still vary inversely. So y equals a over x. And we're told that y is 16 when x is 1/2. So what can we do to get a by itself?
Times it by itself.
We're going to multiply by
Yeah, on each side.
by 1/2. Because the 1/2 and 1/2 would cancel. 16 times a half. What's half of 16?
Hold on. 8.
So our equation is y is equal to 8 over x. Now the next part is to find out what's the value of y. Because y is 8 over 2. Because if you look at the instructions right above it, the variables x and y vary inversely. Use the given information. Then find y when x is 2. So in our case, y is 4. because it will be, the homework will be very similar for this part like these here. It's going to give you a set value for all of them. And I believe the set value of x that they're giving you is 3. So if it doesn't divide nicely, leave it as a fraction.
It's pretty easy to do in your head.
So if you got 7/3, just leave it as 7/3, don't reduce it. But if you get 6/3, reduce it to 2. Because if it's a non-repeating, if it's a repeating decimal, leave it as a fraction.
The fractions, the factoring thing, I haven't went some of it out.
113.